Welcome to Studio 1776. We are on air. We are broadcasting live through our YouTube program, and we are also broadcasting live here at Blog Talk Radio. I'm your host, Daniel Leach. I will be joined tonight by Eric Hughes of the Courtroom Observation Network, and also we should be having another caller, Dave Pruitt. And I'm just waiting for those guys to call in. They should be calling in at any moment now. But tonight we're going to be having a multi-topic discussion discussing infiltrators and agents. Also history and preparedness and hidden influences on the government. That's right. When we talk about the hidden influences on the government, what we're actually talking about is the Illuminati, or more specifically, the Freemason, the occult, and Satanism. Anybody that's been following our show for a while understands that there are these influences on the government, and we call it the shadow government, or we call it the New World Order. Many of the organizations that support this shadow government are like the Bohemian Grove. There's other groups where they meet in secret and in darkness, and the general public often is not told about these events. And if they do happen to show up in some of the mainstream media, it's more joked about on late night television by some of the Hollywood movie stars, and they like to make fun of conspiracy type theorists like myself. And so the idea here when we discuss these topics is to get into more of the details and the actual facts and history of this shadow government. And myself, I've been studying this subject for about 20 years now. I really got into this right before 9/11 happened. I'll give you a little bit of background on myself. I grew up in Rochester, New York, and one of the events that really woke me up before 9/11 was some of the things that I happened to notice as a kid in my neighborhood where I used to ride around on my bicycle and play. There was this house, and it was in the middle of the neighborhood. And there was a strange thing about this house. This house was like a regular house, but the problem about this house that really stuck out to me was the fact that this house didn't have any windows. They were all basically paneled over, like siding. And that was one strange thing. But the other thing that really stuck out to me as a kid was there was a symbol, and the symbol that was on the front door was a Freemason symbol of the square and compass with the middle G. So that stuck in my mind as a symbol throughout my life, where I would see it at different places. I would see it on different buildings. And when I really started to learn about this, I'd go to flea markets, because my grandparents, they sold items at the flea markets. And so I would go and trade baseball cards at the flea markets to, guys that had baseball cards, and oftentimes they'd have books there. Well, I'd be looking at baseball cards, and all of a sudden I notice a symbol, the Freemason symbol. And that symbol of the square and compass would be on the books, and these books would be for sale. And so I would buy some of these books, and I'd take them home and I'd read them, because I wanted to know what was behind the symbol on this house that had no windows. And that's where I discovered many of the so-called secrets that the Masons had hidden. And one of the first books that I actually read that was a Masonic book was called Morals and Dogma. Morals and Dogma was written by a man named Albert Pike. And if you look Albert Pike up, he's famous for a couple different things. Number one, Albert Pike was a general in the Confederate Army. He's one of the only Confederate soldiers that has a statue in Washington, D.C. And now the influence of Albert Pike on our government throughout the history of modern day Freemasonry. Albert Pike wrote basically the rules and regulations for Freemasonry. And one of the things that I discovered when I was reading this Morals and Dogma that really stuck out to me was Albert Pike's basically talking about Lucifer, and how they basically consider Lucifer their god and their influence on their organization. And so that was a red flag to me as an individual. I had been brought up in an American home, a Christian, I would say a Christian influenced home, where we believed that Lucifer was the devil. He wasn't God. He was created by God. And the strange thing about, in my mind, when you have a man that's so influential on the history of America in Freemasons, they often talk about the. Oh, hold on, looks like we have a caller here. Go ahead, caller. I have you here. Who is this? Can I ask?
It's just Dave. Eric told me to call on in.
Oh, great, Dave. Hold on. Eric's calling in too. Hold on one second, all right? Eric, welcome to the show.
I'm here, Daniel. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Great, guys. Hey, we are currently broadcasting on Blog Talk Radio and simulcasting with our YouTube page, live streaming. So we should have an audience here that's listening. So anyways, I just got into a little bit of my history into my influence into Studio 1776 and some of the history of the shadow government, New World Order. And Eric, looks like Eric dropped. I'm sure he'll call back in. But I was talking a little bit about Albert Pike in his book that he wrote, Morals and Dogma. And that how that's influenced me after reading the book and discovering that Albert Pike happened to believe that Lucifer was God, and how that's influenced the history of the government of the United States. Oh, what would you have to say about that specific thing there, Dave? You have anything to add to what I'm talking about?
Well, I would say that there's a lot of interesting when you start looking into a number of different groups that worship Lucifer. Another thing to look into is look at what they teach in the Catholic Catechism. They actually teach for a lot of the higher-ranking bishops and things like that we understand that the masses are supposed to understand that we are praying to Jesus Christ and God Almighty, but we know that when we say God, we mean Lucifer. So when we start looking into that, it's very disturbing to see how Satanism has creeped into every aspect of our lives. Government, religion, it's appalling. And look at many of the satanic symbols that adorn police uniforms and things like that.
Right, absolutely. I was talking
I mean,
about.
one of the things go ahead, sorry.
Well, you were talking about the symbols. Well, one of the things that was interesting to me is the square and compass. You know, that is one of the symbols you're talking about. And that was
Yes.
the real eye-opener for myself into the whole idea of the Masonry. And that one symbol basically was the catalyst to my understanding, and it would catch my eye. I was saying how I would go and trade baseball cards, and I would see books, and that's how I learned. I would read their books, the Albert Pike book, you know?
Yeah, and another thing I would say is about the symbology is look at how a lot of SWAT teams will, so another thing I've noticed with my local number of SWAT teams and SWAT guys I've met over the years, because a lot of times they would come to firearms classes when I teach them. And I remember one guy came in particular, and he was with one of the largest SWAT teams in the U.S. I'm sure everyone has heard of the LAPD SWAT team. They're one of the most famous in the world. And he was on there for a number of years. He was on the hostage rescue one. And I asked him why he had inverted 5-pointed stars on his lapel for his jumpsuit. And he said, oh, they're standard. That's how you're supposed to wear them. So, you know, you see things like that, and they start making you wonder, you just kind of have to ask yourself, I wonder why that's standard. You see what I mean?
Right, yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
and another thing is, look at how these people, law enforcement in general nowadays, are taught to lie and manipulate people. That's not a morally upstanding thing to do. That's why they adorn themselves with satanic symbols.
Yeah, a lot of these guys, I think, are just ignorant of these symbols, and you know, they've grown up to it. They've been accustomed to this stuff. But then there's those people that do know the hidden secrets and meanings behind this symbolism, and you know, and they know how it's influenced the government and, you know, religion throughout the history of the United States and the world, actually. But
and what's really sad is you've also got we are, as a country, we have allowed this to happen, which I will admit, I will be the first to admit, it was very sad, but we now are seeing a trend in law enforcement and things like that to get these sociopaths, psychos, murderers, rapists, all these horrible guys in the uniform and giving them a badge and a gun and telling them, oh, don't hurt anyone. We know how you operate. Don't hurt anyone. Just and we're supposed to trust them. Look at the TSA. Look at how many pedophiles there are in the TSA.
Right. Yeah.
Look at an example there. And these are people who you want feeling you up or your children up when you fly? I don't think so.
Right. Yeah. It's.
So I think that it's definitely disturbing to see that. And I mean, look at companies like Blackwater. I can't remember what their new name is. They changed their name so many times I can't keep up with it. But
right.
We're just going to call that as a de facto name, you know. But you know, look at companies like that. There's a reason why Blackwater and a number of those companies offer security to our to corporate sponsors, like people in the Senate, things like that. We call them corporate sponsors because you and I both know they have no more authority to make or vote on laws than a dog does. So, you know, it's really sad to see the state of affairs on this land right now. You know?
Right.
And see not only a shadow government, but a corporation that has deceived so many people into believing that it is a government.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And it's not really government. It's more like a mirage. It's a trick. It's a scam. It's whatever word you want to put on it. And people have been so propagandized and brainwashed into believing that it's real. I mean, it's literally like the movie The Matrix. You know, you got the real world that they came out of, and then you know you have the fake world, which was the Matrix system that they're plugged into, and it's like a majority of the world is still plugged into the old electronic system, which is basically the television and mainstream media, pretty much.
Well, and you know, it's amazing. If you go, have you seen the newest Mission Impossible? Not the newest one, the other one. I can't remember the name of it. I want to say it's Rogue Nation. Have you seen that newest one?
No, I have not seen that. Would you give us a little review of that? That's actually something we were going to do tonight, is reviews. So.
Well, actually, you know, I'm very impressed. It's a very interesting movie. You start watching it, and you start realizing the theme. It's so amazing. It's like Hollywood's trying to tell us something in this movie. There's a group called the Syndicate, and they shut down the IMF, the Impossible Mission Force, which is what Tom Cruise is a member of. And they go around stopping, thwarting terror attacks and things like that. And they strategically shut down the IMF so Tom Cruise can't go after them. And it's how Tom Cruise, a lone man, is able to assemble his own team and everything to take down the Syndicate, who's run by an ex-British intelligence guy. Okay? And the British were so embarrassed that it was one of their own who made a very powerful organization and was able to flip a number of hostile nation agents and offer them so much money that they couldn't compete with it. So they were just trying to kind of sweep it under the rug, like, oh, if we sweep it under the rug, it'll go away. And how the whole thing backfires on the British government. Tom Cruise gets involved in everything, but it's how they are strategically assassinating good military guys, and they're causing plane crashes, and how everything's connected, and how they do it for profit. It's all about the profit. It's all about the bottom line. You go look at the new James Bond movie. What is it? Spectre.
Right.
Yeah. Watch that. It's the same idea. So what's Hollywood trying to tell us? You see what I'm saying?
Right. There's, you know, Hollywood, there's a whole, that word in itself has a meaning. There's a hidden meaning in that. And I'll tell you a little bit of my study. I study a little bit of the symbolism, and one of the symbolisms behind the Hollywood, the name in itself, Hollywood is a wood that's used by witches in the witchcraft. They use that to make their wands. And the thing that's to them that was important about that type of wood, they believed that it gave them magical powers. Now, one of the things about the Hollywood or the holly bush is the fact that the little berries that are on the holly bush, if you eat those, it is a natural abortion. And that is part of the reason and the magic and the potion behind the Hollywood. So basically, when you look at the symbol of Hollywood, it is a symbol of baby killing and magic. That's what that literally means, Hollywood. That's the influence.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, this is something that when I, you know, through the years of reading material about the occult and witchcraft, that's one of the things that surprised me when I started learning about it. The holly bush, the Hollywood, and witchcraft. And here's the other thing too about Hollywood is in witchcraft they cast spells on people, and in order for their spell to be effective, they have to tell you what they're going to do in some kind of way, whether they come out and tell you up front, or they send you a hidden message a hidden message in front of your face, like hidden in plain sight. And so I believe when these people are making these movies, literally they're casting spells and they're telling us what they're planning and what they're going to do to us, because that's part of their honor system. They must disclose what they're going to do to you or their spell will not work. That's what they believe. So I believe Hollywood movies are a form of, you know, spell casting on the general public.
I and you see, I wouldn't necessarily agree with you on the spell casting side because I haven't researched it. I'll be totally upfront about that. But I would agree with you that it seems to be a pattern that Hollywood uses movies and things like that to influence the public, brainwash them, and allow political agendas to go through.
Right. Well, one of the people that was influenced my understanding of this is a guy named John Todd. John Todd, if you look into his story, um, he was raised in a cult family, a witchcraft family. He wound up becoming one of their high priests. And after he went into the military, he went through that whole process. He also got into the music industry, and he basically came out and told a story about how he was influential on the early church of the Calvary Chapel and the music industry, and how they basically got this rock and roll type of music into the churches, and they believe that that rock and roll music influences in the spirit. Now we know that Lucifer, the fallen one of his biggest influences was music. He was the leader of God's musical uh, angels. And
Yes.
anyways, one of the things that John Todd disclosed was that they use, how would you say, witchcraft, and I'm trying to come up with the correct words, but when they make DVDs, CDs, records, they put spirits in those things through some type of, yeah, how would you say, occult ritual. You know, when they do their praying, I can't remember the name of what I'm trying to say here, but they cast demons on these things, and then right. And when you, as an individual, play these records, DVDs, watch these movies, they believe that those demons and spirits are released from that material into your life because you're allowing it into your being by watching it being influenced. And I believe that's, the Bible says that, to watch your eyes, because that's the gateway to your soul, pretty much. And so when we're watching these movies and we're listening to this music, it's definitely influencing us in some way, whether, people want to believe that there's spirits or not. I guess that's up to the individual, you know. But John Todd was definitely.
I agree with you on that point. That these are specifically used to influence people. I will agree with you 100% on that. Well, and a number of a number of noted supposedly Christian people come out and spoken against a number of other supposedly Christian people, and there are some horror stories behind some of the things that have happened in different supposedly Christian groups. So, sadly, not everyone who professes to be a Christian is a Christian.
Right. Here's something that I learned about the occult, and specifically the Masonic lodges. Now they encourage their members to join churches, even though that they may not necessarily believe in the things that the churches are teaching, but they encourage them to go for leadership in many of these big churches. And this is, I believe, what we're seeing, the influence of the occult over the mainstream churches, because many of the leaders are um, uh, basically influenced through Freemasonry. Yeah, there's a lot of
Churches too.
what's that?
I said it's not just the big churches; it's a lot of small churches are getting infiltrated. The Masons are everywhere. There's a threat to find, and they're all throughout the courts and the sheriff's departments. Also, we get into that later.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, when you read some of their books, like the Morals and Dogma, I mean, I don't have the books in front of me, but just from memory, and these are some of the things that they spoke about. Encouraging their members to seek leadership positions, not just in churches, but also in the political arena. So I mean, they're definitely everywhere. So the influence of the cult runs deep in our.
Well, I think everybody knows who Albert Gore is. Albert Gore's on the internet as one of Tennessee's top Freemasons. So you take it from there, folks, and follow it all the way back. But as soon as we get a few minutes, I'll bring up a little history here about the Freemasons and tell you how far back it goes and how deep it goes, and how it's everywhere right to this day.
Yeah, it's mind blowing, honestly, to think about how big.
Daniel, a little earlier, just a little bit earlier in this program, you mentioned the compass and the square, and that is the Masonic symbol. And it looks like when you look at it, people, if you haven't seen it, it looks like somebody drew kind of like a pyramid or a triangle with no base. So you're just kind of making kind of an arrow that points up in the air, and then right over that, you make an arrow that's pointing down.
Right.
So it looks like a pyramid that's pointing up and a pyramid that's pointing down, and they call it the compass and the square. But if you finish off that symbol and you connect the sides of all those between the points, you'll wind up with a six-pointed star, which is the new symbol of all the many. I'm pretty sure it's I don't know if it's all. I haven't gone to every county yet, but I know here in Ontario County, Steuben County, Monroe County, they've all changed from the sheriff's star used to be the five-pointed, typical, like you would kind of see in the movies, the sheriff's star with the 5 points on the top, two kind of up to each side, and then two kind of at the bottom. And they've changed that now into the six-pointed Masonic symbol, not by accident. And if anybody doubts this, just cruise around Ontario County, New York. Every town you go into, I don't care whether it's Marion or Palmyra or Walworth, there it is. Masons, the blue sign, like a road sign, like a heavy sign. You had to have, you've got to be in with the county and the state to put up these signs. These aren't just little lawn signs.
Right.
There's a permanent metal sign. They've got those two that kind of inverted. It looks to me like two inverted pyramids. They call it the compass and the square. You finish it off, and it's a six-pointed Masonic symbol. And it says Masons, ancient, free, and accepted.
Yeah.
So ancient, yeah. Free, I mean, like as in Freemasons, and accepted. I don't think so. I'll be the decider of who I'm going to accept. And by the way, any group or cult that has to tell you they're accepted has some serious PR problems, and probably not anybody that you want to hang around with. And I'll tell you this: they're everywhere. They're in the sheriff's department. At the lower levels, they're useful idiots. At the mid levels, they're killers and thieves. And at the highest levels, they're Luciferians.
Right.
And so I'll turn it back to you, Daniel. You guys are right on track there. But it's everywhere. Just drive around and you'll see the signs here in Western New York. The Masons are everywhere. Daniel, you don't have to give names, but you could mention that. You could mention the story, Daniel, without giving the exact person's name of our friend who got threatened by the Masons. Who's about to write a book.
Say that again. Our friend that
Daniel, you and I have a mutual friend that was about to write a book about the Mason's murder of William Bartlett. William Bartlett was a very famous
No, it wasn't William Bartlett. It was William Morgan. Yeah.
William Morgan. I'm sorry, I'm getting him confused with the judge, Gohara County, George Bartlett, who's the Freemason. That was fascinating. I was on the internet with a friend, and there was a Ballotpedia. And we looked up the judge that she was going to be appearing in front of, and it said Judge George Bartlett III, a Freemason who was admitted to the bar, lawyers, attorneys, who was admitted to the bar in 1978. He was made a Freemason in 1975. You notice how they had both the two concepts interwoven together. I mean, integral. The Freemason to be a lawyer. You don't get to be that judge until you've been a Freemason for a few years. And it said he's a Freemason who was admitted to the bar in 78. He was made a Freemason in 75. And so they're everywhere. They're throughout the courts. They're throughout the sheriff's departments.
Right. Yeah.
They're throughout the media. And I call it the threat defiance. They're special. I mean, and this is why the citizen grand juries are so important. And I disagree with Sheriff Mack from Constitutional Sheriffs of America, is that he doesn't think the grand juries are a good idea. He said the grand jury in Oregon got in the way. But what else recourse do we have? Well, how are you going to get the local judge and the local state troopers and the feds in your county arrested? The district attorney's not going to bring a case against them. People have to do it. And I hear the reasoning that, oh, well, the sheriffs don't really know about the cops. Well, it's their fault. They always put it on us. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Well, Mr. High Sheriff of Nottingham, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Just because you don't know about the citizen grand jury that we are entitled to convene to bring justice to a corrupt judge or a corrupt trooper or somebody locally, it's absolutely lawful and it's our right to do that. Just because the sheriffs don't know about that doesn't mean that we have to live under tyranny and just continue to be slaves because they're ignorant and they're really comfortable in their ignorance. Yeah, I know it's great to make $150,000 a year, trampling everybody's freedom in your community, writing up all kinds of little yellow tickets to people, cleaning out their bank accounts, seizing their house if they don't pay rent on property to the county, claiming taxes. It's insane. So, I'll turn it back to you now, Daniel.
Well, I keep thinking about this deeper meaning of this symbol, the square and compass, and I believe it goes back to the Bible, and I think the meaning, from my understanding of researching this, is the two symbols, the square and the compass. The square is a symbol for the earth, and the compass is a square for the stars. And then you see in the middle, there's the G. The G is a symbol for the God. And my understanding is that they are, like the Bible talks about, as in the end times, so shall it be, where what we call the fallen angels and the Nephilim, which are the children of the fallen angels, where they bring the heavens and the earth together to create a new species. And this is the deeper meaning of the square and the compass, where they're bringing the heavens and the earth together to create this new species of gods. And this is what I believe this is what the Bible is actually talking about when it talks about as in the end times, as in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the end days. And I believe we are in those days where we're living literally with the influence of the devil and his armies, which are the Masonic orders, I believe.
Yeah, let me just I was listening to an interesting interview on another radio show. The man, I think his name was William Catskill, and he was a defector from the Church of Satan. And during the entire hour-long interview, nowhere did he say the actual word that these evil worshippers call themselves, which is Luciferians. Which I believe was absolutely intentional that he avoided that word, because that's what they call themselves, and he ought to know that if he was part of their order. But he kept making the point that, the Church of Satan is not really about, and he used these words, not about worshiping the Christian devil. It's about living a self-centered life, hedonistically, and trying to gain power over others. It's strictly a power thing. It's strictly a power trip. It's strictly about gaining control in this realm. It's not about channeling power from, oh, yes, it is, people. It is absolutely about to the people who do these evil rituals. It is absolutely about channeling power from the fallen one, Lucifer. That's what they're going for. I'm not doing it. It's them that say it. I'm just announcing that here is what they do. And they're so comfortable and convinced that Your average American is going to tune out and be overwhelmed and not accept the level of evil that's in throughout their local government. That they're just going forward and saying, okay, we're, it doesn't matter what happens. We're so secure. They're like the Nazis were in World War II. They were so secure in their position and their power. They got arrogant, and they thought that they were just going to walk right over the whole world. And they've got a rude awakening coming, I'll tell you that. But it's the Luciferians who are managing the Masons, the Freemasons, and all the other groups. Whether it's, we know all the political groups, BFR, Committee of 300. Oh, by the way, if I can just kind of detour off into Mr. Donald Trump for a minute.
Absolutely.
I want people to consider something, and it's driving me out of my mind to watch people who I thought were sentient beings and thinkers just come forward and say Donald Trump's going to be great. It's so good that we got a guy who's so good. He's anti-establishment. Excuse me. Donald Trump's parents, if I'm not mistaken, were British nationals who were uber wealthy, billionaires. Okay, you don't have wealth in England unless you are intimately connected to the royal family and the Committee of 300. Okay, so he is the establishment. He's put forth the nationalists, and a whole kind of idiot would buy a billionaire as a nationalist, a man of the people. If we're going to have a man of the people, let's have a real man of the people from out of the ranks of the average people, not a billionaire who went bankrupt. Now, by the way, you got to ask yourself this question, folks. Donald Trump went bankrupt multiple times. Who gave him his money back? He's got billions now. You don't go flipping hamburgers or dig your way out of the hole when you go bankrupt at the billionaire level. You don't get your money back unless you get a sign-off from the banking establishment on Wall Street and the Vicar General's office, who's the tax collector for the Vatican. Okay? Every city has a Vicar General. Okay? In Rochester, it's Joseph Hart. Hampton, it's Bob Morris. In Salt Lake, it's Colin Berkham-Shaw. In Hartford, Connecticut, Stephen Boguslavsky. These are real people, and they are the tax collectors for the Vatican, over the court, and over your local county property tax coffers, and anything else they can get their hands on. And if you have any doubts, people, go to the court. Do your court of observing. I've done it. I've watched the surrogate court appoint. Now, this is over people, $1 million estates, children seized by CPS, people's Social Security settlements. Guess who gets appointed by the witches' court over all these categories of Catholic charity, surprise, surprise, run by the Vicar General's office. Okay, so don't tell me they don't have influence over our courts, and my references to the Vicar General don't apply. Oh, by the way, we have a judicial vicar in Rochester. Some really wealthy communities like Rochester, where you had Eastman Kodak and people, there's old money in Rochester. Communities like that, they have the big bucks. They don't just have a Vicar General, Dr. Joseph Hart. We got a judicial vicar. Would my references to the judicial vicar apply? Being that that is judicial, whose judicial do you think they're vicaring? Not the churches, they're vicaring our judiciary. And that's why you see the black robes. That's why you see the unconstitutional acts. That's why you see the abuse of people. That's why you see the grandiose ripoff. That's why you see judges bending over and bending us over for idiot alphabet agencies that have no jurisdiction outside the 10-mile toilet of D.C. And that's in the Constitution. Read it yourself, folks. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. The federal government has no jurisdiction outside their 10-mile toilet. And anything else they try to put on you is a scam. And if people think we got to have national parks and all this other stuff, guess what? That stuff would all be handled really well in private hands and be a lot better and a lot more friendly to the user public. There'd be somebody who stepped in and bought a huge tract of land and turned it into a really user-friendly park without Nazis running around searching people's cars and taking their guns and all that other crap. Believe me, always in private hands is better. There's some local restrictions so giant enterprises don't take over like Walmart did and drive all the mom and pops out of business. Some local control, and that's why we got to do. And with scammers like Donald Trump and scammers in the media, I almost fell out of my chair when I heard an InfoWars reporter, I think his name was Richard Reeves, make the absolutely absurd statement My job is to make sure Donald Trump gets elected. That's a reporter saying that.
Oh,
I mean,
my.
it's so great that I'm going to get some objective reporting from them. Wonderful. InfoWars was turned into the Donald Trump campaign committee and nothing else. Hours and hours and hours about what you're witnessing. And here's the big picture on down. You want y'all guy at the top. Here it is. You're witnessing good Mason versus bad Mason. Donald Trump's being is in your good Mason camp, and Alex Jones was saying it on the radio. He said Christian Masons got news for you, folks. There's no such thing as a Christian Mason. They don't let you use the name of Jesus. They'll talk about God. Their God is not the same as ours. But they won't let you talk about Jesus. And if you get to the highest level of the Freemasons, you have to deny Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Big mistake there. So the Freemasons are the thread that binds. They absolutely are Luciferians. It goes all the way to the top. And you're witnessing a good Mason versus bad Mason battle between Donald Trump, who's being put forward by all the useful idiots in the good Mason camp as the good guy, and the guy who's going to, Donald Trump. Now, these are the words of people in his camp. Put the United States back on the world stage, as if we're not there with 900 military bases around the world. Restore the U.S. to its great stature. Excuse me, that sounds like what Hitler said in the 1930s before he invaded Poland. And I'm seeing the same crap and the same mentality from all the flag-waving nationalist idiots that think because Donald Trump is a good liar and he's speaking accuracies that he's somehow telling the truth. He is not. You can speak all kinds of accuracies and tell people all kinds of stuff they want to hear, and ultimately, you're not going to get it. Why isn't Donald Trump telling it? Why isn't he talking like this? Here's how a real man of the people would talk. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write when I become president, write an executive order giving everybody in the country the title to their house back. And we're all going to take the county sheriff, and we're going to go down with all our federal goons, and we're going to kick in the door of the county clerk, and we're going to hold the gun to his or her head, and we're going to say, now give me the title to all the people's houses in your county that you've stolen and that you've been ripping off every year by charging them rent. Give it to it now, because we're giving it back to the people. Why in God's name are people in a free republic putting up with having a deed to their house and letting their county clerk sit on the title so they can pay rent to a corrupt government that does the things they do, and most of them are Luciferians.
Right.
Okay, so people better wake up. People better realize if that's how Donald Trump should be talking. Okay, we're going to give everybody in the country the title to their private property back, and there's no more counties charging them rent. I don't care, nothing, zero. Any state caught breaking the constitutional rights, violating the constitutional rights of any man or woman living in that state is going to be immediately arrested by the federal government. You don't hear him talking like that. You hear him saying a lot of stuff about 9/11. Oh, great, we're going to have another bogus 9/11 investigation. Oh, great, he's going to audit the Fed. What happened to getting rid of the private bankers who own the Federal Reserve and are printing our currency in violation of our own Constitution, which says the Congress is supposed to print the money, not a bunch of bankers. So you're going to get half-truths, lies, and you're going to. I just can't wait to see how much Donald Trump is going to destroy the country at the behest of all these useful idiots who think he's really a man of the people.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, man. Even Ron Paul is actually speaking out against Donald Trump right now.
Ron Paul's a smart man, and he knows the charlatan when he sees one. Donald Trump sat down and said, "We need someone to take the people's mind off Rand Paul and the Paul family and Ron Paul." And then somebody else said, "Yeah, we gotta have basically like an Al Sharpton for white people." And I said, Donald Trump, perfect. He's an Al Sharpton for white people. The same pompadour, crappy bombastic talk, no action, beholden to the system, completely establishment, and how the people who are pimping Trump are either really stupid or really evil. And I have a feeling it's really evil because they actually are. They do know what he is. They know he's a charlatan, but they think that he's going to be the better Mason. He's going to be the Christian Mason. There ain't no Christian Masons. He's going to be the ancient Christian order, I hear Alex Alex Jones saying? The ancient Christian. How about just Christian? How about just Christian Mason? How about those ancient Christian ethnic order? How about just Christian? Thank you.
Right. It's funny, you know, people that study this stuff can see through the BS and the mainstream. They just have no clue what is really happening, what's really going on behind the scenes.
Good Mason versus bad Mason.
Right. No such thing.
There's no such thing as a good Mason.
Well, unless that Mason has turned around and repented and left the order, yeah, then
and they're not a Mason anymore.
Right.
By the way, I've recently talked to a bunch of Masons who have defected, and you know what's in the Masons? What did he call it? Oh, I think he called it a handbook. I said, the Masons have a handbook? He said, yeah. He said, in it says, if you ever leave, they will kidnap you, take you to the ocean side, cut your throat, and watch your blood bleed into the sea. Okay? Now, if you want those raving lunatics running your sheriff's departments and coming on TV with a straight face and vote for me this October or November, I'll be your friend. I'll be a Democrat who will save you from those Republicans. I'm the Republican who will save you from those Democrats. And you can always tell who's a shield of the system when they start telling you the policies of the Obama administration are stupid. Well, the Obama administration are weak. They don't know what they're doing. They're incompetent. Oh, BS they are. They know exactly what they're doing. Everything they do is by design, including the standing down when they're supposed to act. This is all scripted. There is no incompetence. There's just absolute proactive, progressive destruction of this republic. So when you hear somebody telling you that the current administration or Democrat are somehow ineffective and they don't know what they're doing and they're just flawed and they're hooking boobs and incompetent. Oh yeah, right, sure they are. That's the scam. I heard a guy on the Second Amendment show making a certain statement that the 1,000 races were offices were won by Republicans in the last election. You would think they would have done something constitutional by now. Why would you think that? Why would you think that a bunch of Republicans winning? They should have done something. What's going on here? Why aren't they doing their job? They're doing their job perfectly. They're standing down and letting the Democrats walk you into a globalist nightmare.
Right, absolutely, man. It's I mean, they're definitely destroying America from within because, you know, we already know that any other nation probably couldn't do it because of all the arms that we have in this country. Not only that, but around the world, I mean, we have the biggest military, and so they can't destroy us that way. They have to destroy us within. This is, you know, the plan of the communists for many, many years that they've even talked about it. And now that they've got all the influences, you know, in power through infiltration, that's one of the topics of the discussion tonight is the infiltration. And so this infiltration is, you know, not just through the Masons, but, you know, you also got the communists that are in there as well. So,
well, how do you destroy the United States if you're evil and you want to do that? I do not. But if you do it slowly and from the inside out. And that's what you're seeing. And Donald Trump is the perfect candidate. Oh, by the way, guess who Donald Trump has just taken on as one of his advisors?
Let me guess. Chris Christie. Chris Christie. That's what I heard.
No, Bill Bennett. Bill Bennett is the lunatic who runs around calling himself the czar in a free country. He's the former drug czar. Under Reagan, that really good freedom president, had a drug czar. How crazy is that?
Right.
Okay, so Bill Bennett comes on with, let me tell you a little about Bill Bennett. About, what was it? About 18 months ago, well, a year before last fall. I'll never forget it. I turned on the radio about 6:30 in the morning, and our local radio station was airing, and they don't carry the show anymore, thank God. But they were airing Bill Bennett's Morning in America. And on Bill Bennett's Morning in America, you know, where he pimps the New World Order and the global agenda and tells you how great the, you know, communist score is and all this other crap. Okay, he has Peter King as a guest. Congressman Peter King. And Peter King's that raving, the devilish-looking Nazi congressman from New York who pushed through the Patriot Act and is really the guy at the forefront of driving through the legislation that's extremely dangerous to the principles of freedom in this republic, and he knows what he's doing. And he was making, Peter King, this congressman lunatic, is making the case that we need more war, and we got to have more military spending, we need more conquest, and we need to get overseas and take over more innocent nations, you know, kill more. It was just, it was the height of absurdity. And as he's making this statement, you know, he's obviously trying to sell people on this globalist agenda. And he said, Bill, to the host, Bill Bennett, he says, Bill, I know these arguments are difficult to make, but we need to use our Jesuit skills to do it. And Bill Bennett, of course, blithered, giggled, and laughed. Yes, we sure we do. Didn't deny it. Could have agreed right along and said, yep, oh, great, yep. Okay, so now you have Peter King, a major congressman out of New York who drives through Patriot Act legislation. You got Bill Bennett, who's been around for 40 years, like a bad social disease, pimping his globalist agenda. He was behind communist court and common core curriculum and destroying kids in school, and I'll add a whole pile of other stuff. And so here we have now. So as I'm sitting looking at Donald Trump from day one, saying, you know, this Trump guy fits the exact model of a Jesuit. He wouldn't have got his money back if he didn't sign up. I'm sure they gave him a crash course and said, Donald, here, you're going to get all your money back that you squandered. But you're going to have to come forward someday, and we're going to call on you to do a favor. We're going to need you to do something. You be there, and you'll have all your fortune restored to you after your bankruptcy. And we goes bankrupt, he gets all his money back. And here he is. Hey, Donald, come forward. Take everybody's mind off Rand Paul. Take everybody's mind off a real candidate of the people. And here you go. Just run them around in circles. Tell them what they want to hear. Change your position. Speak half truths. Act like a man of the people. We got unlimited funds. And here's your new Jesuit advisor, Bill Bennett, coming right in. And Donald Trump, don't believe for 1 minute he doesn't know who Bill Bennett is. So Donald Trump's just basically hired one of the top Jesuits in the world, in the Western world, veteran old school Jesuit. Because Bill Bennett's we're going way back now. We're not going back to Clinton. We're going back to Reagan, and he's still around. And Donald Trump, of all the people in the world that he could have taken up for an advisor, now he's going to top Jesuit, admitted Jesuit, Bill Bennett, former drug czar, who still runs around calling himself a czar like a raving lunatic. So there you go with Donald Trump. So the crazy Eric, and I didn't advertise it too much that Donald Trump was a Jesuit because I just didn't have quite enough to try to get put out there. But you tell me now that he's not taking on a top Jesuit advisor, and don't tell me he doesn't know Bill Bennett's not a Jesuit, please. These guys have been playing the game for decades. Okay, so this whole line of crap that I'm hearing from all these other supposedly alternative media sources that are nothing worse than CNN now. How is InfoWars? I'd rather watch CNN than listen to InfoWars now. At least, maybe not. At least the InfoWars reporters are honest enough to say, hey, we're biased. We want Trump, and that's all we're going to do is try to sell you Trump for the next 6 months. Great. Might as well listen to something else, like Studio1776.org, Daniel. Thanks for being there.
Yeah, man, no problem. I mean, this is why we're here. We're here to discuss these deep topics that you're not going to get anywhere else, whether it's, CNN, Fox News, or InfoWars. You're not going to get this kind of information, definitely. This is probably just about the only place you'll probably get it. Maybe a few other alternative websites, but this is the kind of stuff that...
Very few. There's so many people get too, as soon as we have to look behind the final curtain to see who's in, but people bail out. I mean, they just split. Or if you find out that at the last minute, that they are on the other side, which I'm finding out now about a lot of other alternative media sources, making absurd statements that are just out of this world, off the wall. So yeah, and if you can go to a lot of sites that have passion, then you're not going to get a lot of thought. And you're going to go to a lot of places that have a lot of thought with no passion and no real solutions. And this is why I like to have Dave on, because Dave talks about, independent counties self-governing themselves, preparing yourself for the times that are coming, getting yourself, both mentally, spiritually, and physically ready for any hard times that may occur, because the people who are in power now do not have good plans for us. They've got everybody's title to the house. They've given us a deed. We're still under a state of emergency since 1933. We've never come out of it. And the courts are acting like it. And with the Patriot Act finishing us off, the courts assume that, hey, it's now legal and lawful to just completely abuse the American people. We're all property now. And if you doubt that, look up in your Black's Law dictionary, folks. Everybody should have a Black's Law, because if nothing else, you'll see the game that they're playing on us. And every piece of property in the United States of America is placed in rem. It's called in rem, INREM, and that is a state putting property in a world trust, basically, where the property doesn't belong to you anymore, even though you may think you own it. I'll say it again. Hey, bro, you don't have the deed. You don't have the title to your house. Get a deed, and the county clerk sits on the title.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
how they can extort from you. Now, you can file papers to take your house out of the state of rem, put it on private, take it off the residential roll. You look on your tax thing, it'll say roll, residential. What the hell about? The rest should say private property, not residential. You can file papers to do that. But once again, you can have the enforcement Nazis will be happy to come steal your house, even though you've got claim to it, you own it, you live in a free republic that has private property rights. You've asserted your private property rights through a land claim and a land patent and a removal from the residential roll and a placement on private property. Some jurisdictions may honor it, and many won't. But I do encourage people to at least file the papers, and if you still choose to pay the taxes, great, but at least you've done your due diligence to get the paperwork in there. If every person in the county did that, you believe me, they'd stop collecting taxes, because the people would be awake enough to get out of the corrupt avatar that they have in there. The mayor, the county executive, the high sheriff, and those are your important positions. You need to have and the judge, sheriff, and the mayor or your county commissioner or your whatever, the county executive. Those positions have to be held by libertarians and constitutionalists. And we have to start getting people's private property rights back, get them, everybody their title back. No more of this stuff. Here's a deed. We'll sit on the title to your house, so we can get $5,000 out of everybody or more on every house in town. Claim it's going to the schools. And it's actually going enough to the state with a huge cut going to the vicar general.
Right. Hey, Eric.
So everybody down there.
I don't want to cut you off here, but I just found something that I think is breaking news. And it's a YouTube video, but it was also placed on Facebook, and it says U.S. missile just took out dozens of Russian generals. And I just pulled that up here, and I'd like to play that. It's just a 5-minute clip, and I think it would definitely be something very interesting to throw in here to kind of give us a little bit of a break. So
fantastic. I need a break. Yeah, Daniel, that sounds fascinating. Let's see if that's real.
All right. So, are you guys still there?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm still here.
Well, that was definitely an interesting video. It had over 50,000 views, and it was just put up today. And then there was this. It was a Facebook page, and then there was the website. It's called worldnewspolitics.com, and it's interesting. I haven't found anything on the website saying that it was satire. So it seems like a pretty good possibly a pretty a good alternative source, but this is something I'm still looking into, but I thought it was an interesting post here. Um, anyways,
Yeah, if you've never heard the proposal, let's make up their own mind. You know, I mean, I didn't quite gather. I wasn't quite. I was looking for more details on the death of the generals. I didn't hear quite like where and what the specifics. It happened in and this happened in Russia supposedly.
I guess so. Yeah, there was a car bomb, and it supposedly was planted somewhere. Um, so, I'm looking on this the disclaimer on this website.
More details on these, you know.
Yeah, I'm looking on the disclaimer of the website. It says all the information on this website is published in good faith for our general information purposes only. Doesn't make any warranties about the completeness, reliability, or accuracy of the information. Any action you take upon the information you find on this website. So it's not claiming that it is a satire website. Um, So this is definitely something to be looking into as far as a big happening in this Syrian type of war between Russia and the United States. It looks to me it's looking like the United States may have just done something to ramp up this hot war instead of let's fight around the edges. It looks like they're actually making, like this guy was saying, how the Nazis, the Americans went after the Nazi generals before D-Day. This is what this is kind of looking like, if this is a true story. Like I said, let's leave it up to our audience to do the research. I know that there's quite a few researchers on our websites, on our blogs, and I'm hoping that we find out more information about this in the future, and hopefully here in the next couple days. So, anyways,
It's really hard to know, from where we sit. We only know what we're told, you know, and I'm not, you know, so even if the report from the gentleman that you played is fully accurate, which I don't doubt his truthfulness. The gentleman seemed to be an honest guy. But what do we really know? These guys might have been supplying the left with intelligence and defecting, going against Putin. Maybe he had a hit. You have to kind of keep your, so I don't like to jump to conclusions. I'm not making any stuff like that. Things that happen at the global international level. Number one, so much of it's staged. So much of it is reality, theater. Almost everything that comes through the intelligence agencies, and they run the media, is disinformation. So it's tough. It's tough to kind of get a handle on. So maybe if that did happen, and there were a whole bunch of generals killed, so who killed them? Did the U.S. kill them? Is everything as clear as it seems? I mean, I think the sides are getting more. I think at the same time they're clarifying. They're also. I think a lot of people are floundering, kind of in between, making their own deals. And I'm really kind of reluctant to jump to conclusions on that, and assume that. But yeah, start looking into it. Once again, though, how does someone like George V investigate, or come to, we can speculate. Once again, I was speculating that Donald Trump was a Jesuit and deeply beholden to the vicar general, which is the tax collector for the Vatican. That's how he got his money back, and that's how he gets to play ball in New York City, you don't just become a billionaire on your own, and you're just run into the vicar general and the high level bankers down at the cotillion or the ball once in a while. No, they're intimately related in every deal they make. No big deal goes down without certain players in the banking establishment, and someone from the Vatican is always sitting on that approval committee. So is the vicar general. So nothing really happens without their sign off. So they're kind of, they're linchpin in all this. I mean, there's other players. There's executioners. There's deal makers. There's messengers. I'm not just saying the vicar general's running around like Superman, the evil Superman, like a supervillain. I mean, he's got a lot of help, believe me. But that's where it's coming from. That's the order giver. The Church of England and the Vicar General's office and the Church of Rome are now connected intimately. They're not different, independent, separate entities. They're working together.
Right.
Those are the tax collectors over the U.S. And that's really where the power lies. It really doesn't even lie in the banking establishment, because the Vatican is so powerful. They have so many unscrupulous people throughout the Jesuits that they'll kill people to get ahead. And so many people are afraid of that they've deferred a lot of power and given a lot of power that they didn't have to give to the Vatican and out of fear, and often out of greed. They'll buy people off. They'll try to buy you off first. They'll knock you off second.
Right.
So we at this point in history cannot be afraid. We all have to move forward, and this is why it's important to have God in your life, because when it gets over, the victory is not up to us. The victory is God's. We're just delegated to fight the fight. We need to storm the gates of hell, come what may. Whether we win or lose doesn't matter one bit. What matters is, did we do what we could when we were here to right the wrongs that are obvious?
Right, absolutely. I see Dave is still there on the line, and I'd like to hear what he has to say on this subject or on anything that we've been talking about today, Dave. What are your thoughts?
Well, first off, I agree with Eric. Anyone who's known me for a very long time will tell you that I'm a person who looks at the short game, the long game, and every part of that game in between, i.e., I'm a strategic and tactical level leader, and I've done that for a while, so I see how things start to happen, and I've been very fortunate to know a lot of people. And can I share a quote with you two that I think is very prudent to what you just, to this media site that you just played the video from or whatever. Basically, the quote was from a friend of mine who worked at the Central Intelligence Agency for a number of years. And he said when he first went through intelligence training, he was in charge of human intelligence gathering, okay? But he was in charge of it at the strategic level, which is at like a commanding level. And he said, by the way, let me just interject. Dave is right. According to all my sources, human intelligence is still the premier way to gather intelligence. It's still the bottom line. It's still the gold standard. It's still how stuff is really done. I can give you examples of that, but I've talked to people who are in private intelligence and were in the government at one time, and they've told me that it still boils down to that person, that boot, I hate to use the word boots on the ground, but just that person, that tourist with the camera, clicking that picture. There was a famous case of a submarine that was out of the water in one of the Russian naval yards, and the tourist on a boat just happened to click a picture, and they had to cover off one of the engines for their latest submarine, and that was a valuable piece of intelligence, because with the picture of that engine uncovered, they could determine the signature, and it gave the naval intelligence a huge leg up. But anyway, so back to you, Dave. I just wanted to confirm that human intelligence is still where it's at. So y'all out there, don't give too much credit to the NSA and all their technology. Yeah, they can record a lot of phone calls. Big deal. It comes down to your human intelligence. They can record all they want. I talked to someone, the NSA, I forgot the name of the city, they had their own city. of people who are analysts and all that stuff. And it was 25,000 people last time I checked. I'm sure that number has doubled since then. And they do not, they said for how much recording they do, about 70% at the time of the data they record is lost because they don't have the time to listen to it by the time they need to delete it to make room for new stuff. So I would say that's A. And B, let me get back to what I was saying. This friend of mine was very, very well connected. And he told me, I'll give you the number one secret of the intelligence game, espionage, all that, okay? He said, just believe everything you hear. He said that is the first thing, because when you're in another country, when you're in your country, it doesn't matter. Don't believe the media, because they're specifically, whether it's they're pro or against what you're trying to do, they're specifically there to indoctrinate people. They use common brainwashing techniques, and he said that is why many at the CIA and other agencies are not allowed to watch news broadcasts, because they actually change the way you think over time. Okay? And he said another thing is, you know that old saying, check but verify? He said, we check, but we verify and verify and verify and verify and verify. So the human intelligence world is where the U.S. has really fallen behind. We rely so much on technology. He said it's so apparent nowadays. He's like, now the CIA is so reliant on cell phones. He's like, if the cell phone grid went down, the CIA would go kaput within 24 hours. He said every CIA asset would be fleeing for the hills because they are so reliant. He said now they don't, a lot of their guys don't even carry guns and stuff. They carry a cell phone. That's how reliant these guys are on technology. Yep. And this is why I am so hard on my students and so hard on people I try to help and train them and prepare them, is knowledge is power and training is knowledge. So by training ourselves, we're giving ourselves the knowledge to prevail when we have technological, what I call technological farts. And I can tell you, I've used night vision equipment quite a bit. I've seen more night vision equipment fail than you possibly believe. I have seen some of the most seasoned veterans of our military literally almost have panic attacks when their night vision fails. Okay, and I mean, they are just beside themselves when they have a complete failure of the intensifier tube or something along those lines. And this is why it's so important that we have to train ourselves to learn those skills that make our job easier. That means that we can rely on technology, just don't be totally dependent on it. You know, look at law enforcement nowadays. Nowadays, they are so like local law enforcement. If their radios went down, they would all have heart attacks because they actually have to get out of their car and walk a mile if it broke down to get to a main road and flag down one of their guys. So look at how we have become, because we're talking about what's happening, possibly what happened just over there in Russia and things like that. But think about it like this. We've become so dependent on technology, our military. I just talked to a buddy of mine who's a ranger, just got out of ranger school. He talked to, and he's another friend of mine's best friend's son. Confusing, I know. But those two friends of mine were both in special operations together and were part of sacrificial units during the Cold War. And by the way, they could tell you guys some very, very interesting stories about the Cold War. They were not worried about the Russians. They were more worried about, because when we were in West Germany, one of my buddies was there. He said during the height of the Cold War, they were more worried about not the Germans, they were more worried about the insurgents. I'm sorry, not the Germans, the Russians. They were more worried about when the Russians got done crushing them, coming through, and then all the infrastructure being left there for whoever wanted to come in and rebuild. They were more worried about that because they weren't too worried about the Russians. The Russians were not stupid, like they would have you believe. And their technology is not crappy like they would have you believe. Their electronics leave a lot to be desired, but they're heavy duty. That's what I'll give them credit for.
Gotcha.
And, you know, we think things. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say I was, as you're talking here, I'm listening, and I'm just scanning the web, and also the dailybeast.com, they're reporting the same thing, that the U.S. Missiles basically are taking out Russian military generals, and it.
Okay, well the Daily Beast is extremely established. That intelligence agency run absolutely. So that's going to lead me to believe that what we're seeing here, whether the general got killed or not, is intentionally set up to outrage people, outrage, the people will be outraged if you can convince them that the United States just assassinated a bunch of generals.
Right, they're saying that. They're saying that the actual missile was an anti-tank missile, a BGM-71 TOW.
Dave would never tell you that it's written out. Dave can maybe disagree with me. I'm going to defer to him ultimately, but let me give my take. First of all, how do they know that? Who did the forensics?
Well, they're saying because there was some video footage of this, and it says circulated by a known CIA-backed Free Syrian Army militia, shows a laser-guided BGM anti-tank missile fired at a roof.
Okay, you've done all the. Well, I'm looking at the players now. You're looking at CIA, and CIA PAC. Okay, what you're witnessing is a staged event. Whether there was definite or not, I don't know. There could very well be, but what we're going to be fed is now by those three entities: the Free Syrian Army, which is a CIA mercenary group, the Daily Beast, which is a CIA media front, and they're not gonna give you the specs on what missile they killed the Russians with. If they have something to kill Russian generals with, they're usually gonna just keep it cool or feed you a bunch of baloney that is going to take you somewhere else. In other words, disinformation as opposed to misinformation. When you give somebody misinformation, it's just wrong. When you give somebody disinformation, it's intended to lead them elsewhere. And I think that's what we are witnessing here. What do you think, Dave?
Well, can I comment on this before we go too much further with it about identifying things via video? Okay. Depending on the quality of the video and things like that, we can, in most instances, point out what type of a rocket or anti-tank weapon or whatever did it. A lot of times, it's before the explosion and things like that, i.e. the flight path, the design of the fins, things like that. We can, and I can tell you, I've shot quite a few anti-tank weapons. And
she got footage of the before, but based on the after, if they're telling you exactly what it is that quickly, it's got to be.
It will take 24 to 48 hours to do what they call confirmed analysis, even on a rifle round. I mean, they can have video of you shooting that rifle at someone, and they will not confirm it for 24 to 48 hours, in my experience.
Accurately and honestly, boy, I'm always skeptical, Dave. You know that.
Well, I'm saying that that's just standard operating procedure for anyone who's going to confirm, do any confirmation with this. It takes a long time to analyze that video frame by frame and go through. I've got Jane's Intelligence Network's their complete book on identifying every known military weapon, small arms like shoulder-fired munitions and things like that, that there are in the world. And it's about 7,000 to 10,000 pages long last time I checked, and ever expanding. It takes that long to go through there because you got to find a chapter, and then you got to go through there and start comparing, and it might be a hybrid. That's the problem with the CIA tends to try to mask things that they give to Al Qaeda and Al-CIA, I should say.
Well, that's why I was saying that the full investigation takes a little longer when we get such accurate information so quickly. I just have to go to the disinformation thing, you know?
Yeah, and I agree with you on that, but I'm saying there is a possibility because I do know someone, an ex-Delta friend of mine, he was actually brought in for a number of local news crews in the Bay Area, actually out of Oakland, just to identify guns and things like that for video, and also being able to do things like sound analysis to see how many shots were actually fired, things like that.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. It's entirely, I agree with you, and I accept the fact that it's entirely possible. It's possible that, you know, it is within their realm of capability to do a full investigation quickly. I think I'm just questioning the honesty of that and what that's going to be at such an early stage. You know, it just seemed to be too conveniently packaged too early.
Well, and I would say that it's possible, it's just not probable. The problem is time frames tell us a lot about something. When they have within 5 minutes of a school shooting, they have the type of the gun used, the serial number, and exactly how many rounds fired. It's very suspicious in and of itself. That is something that my friend would call what he doesn't use the word false flag. He says redirective event. That's what he calls it. He says that's what the military calls these things. When you're in special operations, you're told basically they can give you the type of mission it is. Redirective events are a specialty of groups like Delta Force and SEAL Team 6 and those Tier 1 operators. And I would say that when you have something that's so nicely packaged for a media outlet, it's possible that it could be all true, but it's not probable just because of the time frame. And we'd have to research more about the time frame. Who's making these claims? Do they have the background? Do they have the knowledge to make these claims?
Well, it's saying that everything is based on an open source intelligence and reporting from Syrian opposition, Turkish and Russian sources, all of which agree at least one high-ranking Russian official was killed in action in Syria. And it says, as of Thursday evening, U.S. officials would neither confirm nor deny to the Daily Beast whether an increase in resupplies to U.S.-backed rebels militia was in the offering as a result of the complete and utter breakdown of the Syrian peace negotiations in Geneva. So,
but you know what? I will tell you the same thing he tells you. If they refuse to confirm or deny that they've been helping someone, you can almost guarantee you that they've been doing exactly what they shouldn't be doing. That's why they use the term, I can either confirm or deny. The reason they use this term is because it makes it look like, oh, it's above their pay grade, they can't talk about it. You know, to most people, it's not that suspicious. Anyone who's actually worked with anyone intelligence-wise, they'll tell you that that's basically a big, you know what I did, but I'm not going to get to it. See you in court. That's basically what it means.
Right, yeah, absolutely. They can't come out and disclose.
And I'm not saying I'm the ultimate expert or anything. I have very few friends and things like that I can trust talking about these kind of subjects with who've actually done that. So, because many of those people never come to our side. Many people who have made mistakes in their life keep making mistakes in their life. They do not see that what they did was evil and come to the light. Some people like that tend to, or most people in that line of work, tend to live in the shadows because they don't want what they've done to come to light.
Right, absolutely. I agree.
The Jiu-Jitsu master that I studied under said these words, and they were never more true than when he said them, because he was talking to a guy who came from a government agency, and he was expecting a government discount because taxpayers were paying for his training in this. And he was asking why the guy wanted to learn all the techniques of the advanced students without any prior training. And he said, oh, well, I can't really talk about it, you know how that goes. The guy said, I know exactly how it goes. and he said, you want to learn how to fight in the shadows because blood is very rarely seen in the shadows. So I think that it's really important that we look at things from a non-emotional, objective point of view, like Eric and I talked about numerous times. I think that's really important when it comes to things like this, is take the whole scope of things into perspective. And, I mean, there's not much more I can say about it, you know?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I get you. It's definitely worth the discussion. You know, exactly, do we buy what they're saying? You know, it's good to be skeptical of anything that you're finding out there on the mainstream. Or
let me jump on where Dave just left off that there. This will give me an excuse to bring up something that I thought was kind of interesting. Y'all let me know what you think here. Dave just mentioned the words, looking at the whole, you know, kind of looking at the whole picture at the same time that you're, you know, attending to your details and getting all the specifics. Yeah, that's the kind of your life. You know, it's the short term, long term. It's the both. It's short term, long term. So I thought it was to show you how far back the Freemasons go. You know, obviously, they go back to the time of Solomon's Temple and the construction techniques. But as far as the Freemasons as a power cult, which is really what it is, I think that's the most accurate way to describe it. It's a power cult, and you're going to see factions vying for power. And right now, you're witnessing good, like I said before, good Mason versus bad Mason. It's like that old Mad magazine. Remember Spy versus Spy? Good Mason, bad Mason. And it's really what it is. You know, now that I think about that, that may have been more telling. That cloak and dagger thing, boy, you know, now that I think about it, I'm going to have to dig up some old bad magazines and see how prophetic they were, you know, because they script a lot of things through the media, through the Hollywood. I think a lot of the movies you were discussing before earlier in the show are preconditioning. It's not just Hollywood trying to tell you something. It's the intelligence agencies feeding scripts to it. Most of these Hollywood script writers, they're not that. A lot of this stuff comes from the intelligence agencies and the forward planners in the Pentagon. They're looking 100 years ahead, people. You and I all look to about next week, maybe tomorrow, maybe next year, if you're a big planner, or a couple years. But, I mean, how many people look 50, 100 years out? None of us do. I mean, we're not expected to really live that long if you're in your 40s. There was some of us there. I will assure you, they're giving us up. No, but seriously. Okay, so, you know, all right, let me get back to because I had to chew up a little time here while I'm opening up my dictionary. And I know that sounds really boring, folks, but maybe it's not, I guarantee. This is kind of interesting. To me, this is interesting. All right, so has anybody ever seen the movie The Man Who Would Be King? Sean Connery and Michael. Okay, I highly recommend people watch that movie. It's with Sean Connery and Michael Caine. And it takes place, maybe 100 years ago, and Sean Connery and Michael Caine play two British explorer/soldiers, and I forget what their, but basically they were, I don't know if they were, exploring on their own or if they were on a mission, but they ended up, the two of them, traveling up into the hills of, I believe they call it Pashtunistan. You're in the basically Afghanistan, Pakistani region, northern India. And at the beginning of the movie, the character who I believe is attempting to play Rudyard Kipling, a famous author who wrote stories, like Jim and about, India and those times of British occupation in India. And he gave one of the characters a medallion to hang around his neck. And that medallion was a pyramid with the all-seeing eye at the top, just like you see on the back of your dollar bill. And later in the movie, as it goes on, that they discover that he's, one of the characters is wearing this medallion, all-seeing eye at the top. They start to worship him as the reincarnation of Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great was born. Oh gosh, it's going to take me to get into this. A second here. I was going to try to get you the exact date of Alexander's reign. While I'm doing that, let me tell you, Alexander the Great was a very famous Freemason. Here we go. Alexander dies of a fever at Babylon. Let me back up. At war, Rome subdued the cities, had withdrawn from her Latin League. In 338 BC, here we go. Let's start about 335 BC, 336. Philip II of Macedonia, of Macedon, is assassinated. He is succeeded by his 20-year-old son, Alexander. 334 to 331 BC, Alexander the Great. His, I guess, lifespan was about 356 to 323. He died young, I think at 33. Conquers the Persian Empire by his victories at Granatius and the Isis, blah, 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 blah. Funny how Isis, I-S-U-S, oh boy, and here it is, I-S-U-S, one of the victories that Alexander the Great had in 333 BC. Notice the reference to the 33rd degree basins. He leads an expedition in Egypt, founds Alexandria. He conquers Babylonia, Partha, Bactria, India. The guy basically conquered the entire known world at the time. He was a Freemason, probably the earliest complete, because his reign was almost, other than pockets and little outlying areas and native tribes up in, the Africas and the Polynesian Islands. We're not counting that, but most of the known free world at the time was under Alexander the Great, a Freemason. And all kinds of allusions to it in that interesting movie, The Man Who Would Be King. But back to the history, Alexander the Great invades India, but later withdraws after his troops mutiny. And then by the time he was about, I think, 33 years old, Alexander dies with fever. Now, keep in mind, his empire went, from the Mediterranean all the way to China. And so, and Alexandria is where the library of all the knowledge was from the ancient world that ended up burning down. But the Masons are always quick to tell you, and I had one tell me this in the courthouse in Rochester, New York. Met a Mason up there. I couldn't believe it. He said, "Yeah, I'm a Mason. I worked on the child ID program." And he says, "We have the knowledge. We carry the knowledge. They're big on the secret knowledge, Masons are. And the Masons have been around since long before the birth of Christ. Masons were basically the founders of Rome and the Caesars. We're all Masons, you can be assured. How about this? The first, gosh, how many was it? Wait till you hear. I'm going to scoot over to Alexander. I'm going to go out of the history and I'm going to let you know. Listen to how many popes named themselves after Alexander. Listen to this. You're going to get a kick out of this. One sec while I turn the page. Turn the page. Alexander the First. Pope from 106 to 115. It's like within 100 years after crucifixion. Alexander the First, again. Oh, I'm sorry, Alexander the Second. Died 1073. Alexander the Third. Died 1181. Alexander the Fourth. 1261. Italian Pope. Alexander the Fifth. 1340 to 1410. Alexander the Sixth. These are all popes. Every single one of them naming themselves after the Mason Alexander. Pope Alexander the Sixth, 1431 to 1503, Italian ecclesiastic pope. Alexander the Seventh, 1599 to 1667. Alexander the effing Eighth, 1610 to 1691. Are you getting the picture here, folks? From like 0 AD to 1500, you had popes all calling themselves Alexander. Okay? So, the King Mason, who basically, here's his empire, Alexander, over the Mediterranean and the Black Sea, all the way to the far side of the Caspian and the Arabian Sea, Arabia, India, Persia, Egypt, everything was under the Masons. And you see the first 8 popes, they named themselves Alexander. So I think there's nothing coincident coincidental about that. Which Alexander do you think they were? Those popes, those Caesars, okay, modern Caesars. The popes were nothing more than the continuation of Caesars in Christian drag, okay, because the Catholic cult has nothing to do with Christ. It never has. It never will. Useful idiots may think it does. Just because they're stupid doesn't mean their delusion is real. So, I don't think they were, these first 8 popes were naming themselves after Alexander the cook down at the local hot dog stand. They were naming themselves after Alexander the Great, the Mason, okay, hundreds of years before the birth of Christ, okay? So you can be assured. Now, what you're witnessing right to today, okay, now to today, you can drive into any one of these towns in Ontario County where I'm sitting and see a blue sign with the compass and square. If you finish off those 2 inverted pyramids, you'll get the 6-pointed star, which all the sheriff's departments have now. They don't have the 5-pointed star, they got the 6. Okay, so all the way from Alexander the Great to today, with the blue signs that say Mason. So welcome. It doesn't say welcome. It just says Mason. Ancient, free, and accepted. They're here. Just think about that, people. The same secret cult that has knowledge and has all these factions and all these Christian orders and the ancient order and the white hat order and the black hat order. That's all Mason. You're witnessing to today, to this day, with Donald Trump, your good Mason, and all the people saying, oh, it's so great, we got Trump, and he's going to really make things right. He's going to save the day. I mean, imagine how stupid and foolish people are who look up to Mr. Pitt. Hi, Mr. King, you're going to save the country. You're going to save us. He's going to make the difference. No. Until you take your counts back, people, until you look up the street at the Masons in your neighborhood, and you look at your county legislature, your county charter, your county sheriff, the constitutional sheriff. Do you have a constitutional charter? Do you have a constitutional sheriff in your county? Do you have a sheriff that's willing to execute the will of a citizen grand jury if it's a lawful indictment against a local judge or a local state trooper? How are you going to get justice without a citizen grand jury? Once again, back to Richard Max, the sheriff of Constitutional Sheriffs of America. He doesn't ever want to address, he doesn't want a citizen grand jury because it's going to make his job a little too tough. He's actually going to have to go arrest one of these corrupt corporate government imposters that's committing treason. And the sheriffs of constitutional, nobody wants to do that. Nobody has the guts to go arrest the local judge, even though they're violating their oath every day under Article 6, Clause 3. Judicial officers shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support the Constitution. Every judge has taken an oath that they will support the Constitution, and every day, every one of them breaks it. And most of them are Masons, going all the way back to Alexander the Great.
That's pretty impressive information that you're giving the audience here. I doubt they'd be hearing this anywhere else besides on this program. I've listened to lots of different programs, Eric, and not very many of them go into the detail that we're talking about here tonight. So this is, I'm learning some stuff here as we're talking. You know, it's funny you're talking about the Alexander the Great. Some of the things that were, I would call anomalies during his time was when he was in Afghanistan. There were reports of what they call the black triangles when Alexander the Great was in there, and these black triangles were going after Alexander the Great. They were the great black flying triangles. I don't know if you know anything about those, or have you heard anything about that?
No, that I'm not familiar with, although we see so many depictions on cave walls, from the walls of caves, done in the hand of obviously people at the time, so they're not forgeries, so to speak, of things that cannot be mistaken only for flying ships and, you know, things that look like a space shuttle, you know, with a cone on the front, wings, and a fin on the back. I mean, real, like, how did they know these things existed? You know, all you can do is speculate that there was either, you know, some kind of either advanced civilization that went under, you know, that native tribes, you know, because to this day there's still tribes in the Amazon that would look at us and say, wow, you know, futuristic space people, you know. So back then there might have been, you know, you can refer to Atlantis. Was there an advanced civilization that had, you know, flying ships? I'll tell you this. I have from a very reliable source extremely reliable. He was in the military. He worked 6 stories underground in Germany, doing war planning during the Cold War. He got a pass on Vietnam because his father came over under Operation Paperclip. And he told me that, he said, Eric, now you know the war in the Middle East is not, this was right after 9/11. And he said, you know the war in the Middle East is not about terror. I said, yeah, I know that. And he said, you know, it's not about oil either. I said, yeah, I figured that. And he said, you know what it's about? He said, they're looking for a piece of ancient technology. That's what he told me. He said, and he said it would be something similar to a Stargate. Those were his words, not mine. Okay, so I'm just telling you, this is what I was told by someone extremely reliable and who would not be prone to exaggerate or tell stories that they were the powers that should not be and basically are in the Middle East because they're looking for a piece of ancient technology that they're firmly believed exists. Based on what evidence, I don't know. They may have found pieces or other, allusions to it, writings or, maps or I don't know what they've got. But that's what they're looking for. Oh, and by the way, he said, oh, and when I looked at his head, because I was even like, yeah, really? Stargate? And he said, Eric, where's the first place that the special forces, the one that you were at least told about, where's the first place they went when they entered Baghdad? The Antiquities Museum.
Right. Yes.
And so, so I said, yeah, okay, it's once again speculation, but that's what I was told. So once again, you can speculate all kinds of things, but once again, I keep going back to let's take our county back one county at a time, because the Luciferian worshiping Masons are really, and I think they want to do all kinds of distractions in the media, like, the alien thing and the shapeshifters and the reptilians and the imposters and the, and the time travelers. Maybe, but we're not, once again, this is why I loathe to focus on the presidential race, because what the Council on Foreign Relations is going to do, they're going to do. What the Committee of 300 approves of people doing is what they're going to, whatever the Vicar General is going to do. We're not going to much change that, a little bit on a case-by-case basis with enough pressure on little case, but really, if you want to take back your freedom and your sovereignty and your independence, you have to take back one county at a time. So
right, and not only that, Eric, but it's not just one county at a time, but it's one person at a time. When we come across these people that are looking for help, needing help, like we have been doing with the courtroom observing, that is.
I totally agree.
That's where we start. We start with the individuals. We help one person at a time.
Yes, and that's why I was even reluctant at first to be really happy about the standoff in Oregon. I mean, if that had to be made, it had to be made, and I'll support people in their freedom stand on almost anything that's logical. But that was not, because we don't have enough. We need to do a little more one person at a time educating and awakening. Until we get people educated and awake, first you got to get them educated. You're going to hope they're going to care enough to do something. A lot of people don't. But most people, when they end up, the atrocities get close to home, they end up getting a little more active and a little more awake. All these people in the Shane Bennett gun seizure case here, where the police stole 70 guns and $10,000 cash from a guy who was doing nothing but sleeping in his bed at 3 a.m. with his wife and kids. It's amazing what's going on. But if they weren't awake, really, until that happened to them, it's beautiful to see people waking up. I hate to see it happen through such an atrocity. Guess what? Hundreds and hundreds, I would dare say thousands of people in this community are now waking up and going back to church, good churches, real Word of God churches, trying to get back, some sanity in the community and in their life. People are binding together. Many people are helping the tenants. It really is on the way to taking back a county. But like you said, Daniel, before you can even take back the county, one county at a time, we have to wake up the people in that county be on board. We had to go on in Kansas. We were attempting to, you know, formulate a self-governing county, but the people of the county weren't really, you know, where they're putting forth a plan was a good place to do it, but they weren't really stepping up to the plate in large numbers, you know, like they needed to do. People are gonna get the level of slavery that they choose to accept.
Well,
here's one of our founding fathers said that.
I definitely want to.
Oh,
I want to throw something in there where you're talking about this activism and, you know, some stuff that's going on. I got a friend that's got, he's from New Hampshire, and he's involved with the Free State Project, and they're almost to their goal. I believe it's 20,000 people with signatures to actually move to New Hampshire.
Really? I wondered how that was going. I've been kind of used to follow that, and then I got kind of diverted into some court observers things, and with the, you know, getting into the citizen grand jury, getting knowledge on that, getting knowledge on the self-governing county, and trying to educate sheriffs and or let's just get the corrupt corporate sheriffs the heck out of there and get in a good constitutional/common law sheriff. So I got a little distracted. I haven't been following the Free State Project, but it's funny. Just the other day I wonder how they're doing there at the Free State Project in New Hampshire.
Yeah, I plan on attending. They're having a big festival conference type thing this summer, and I'm actually going to be going to that. And with Studio 1776 on air, we will be reporting from that venue. And you know, I will definitely have you guys, if you're available, to be on the show. You could talk with somebody, some of the people there. I plan on hopefully setting up a table and doing some interviews as we're actually walking around the program there.
Love it.
So, but
Daniel, I think yeah, that's a great. I love it. That's a fantastic idea. I'd like to give them some support through our little niche in the media, a little part that we can play.
Yeah, definitely.
Because they do have a worthy cause up there. It's I like New Hampshire. They don't have any motorcycle helmet law, no seatbelt law, no state income tax. Pretty sure that it's all still that way. If they're getting up to 20,000 people with their free staters, that means they're getting closer and closer to the goal of having an actual quote unquote free state, however you define that.
Well, it's a beginning of
the day before is good enough for me.
Right, yeah, it's definitely a beginning. I'd like to see what happens in the outcome of this, because, you know, it is a kind of liberal state, but, you know, at the same time, you got people that are willing to actually move there and put their lives on the line with their families, and I commend them for this. You know?
Here's why it's liberal. The reason it's liberal is that people are dumping out of Massachusetts, which is right underneath New Hampshire, especially out of Boston, because Boston stinks and it's a cesspool, and it's a giant scummy crap hole. And so it's the state of Massachusetts.
Do you like Boston?
Huh?
Hey, how do you talk about Boston? I think you have a love affair with her.
I said, okay, now, all right, now you're normal. Okay, maybe someone might say, the stupid idiot jackasses. No, they did this on purpose. They put 2 toll booths on a piece of the highway coming out of Boston. I believe it's on 90, just after it comes out of town and it starts. You know, you're still really close to the city, and you're just about to get out to where things open a little bit. You're going to 2 toll booths, one right within, I think, 2 or 3 miles of one another, 6, maybe 4 miles, successfully, completely shutting down, jamming up, backing up traffic. And I sat in this just a couple of mile stretch for over 4 hours. Because they had stacked, not because traffic or the cars or anything to do with normal traffic, you know, busy traffic, because the creeps, the disgusting pig in the Massachusetts government stacked up 2 toll booths, one right on top, so they can extort double money from people. I mean, no, I can't stand it. It stinks. And by the way, their police look like a bunch of village people with their black leather boots pulled up over their knees. They look like a cross between, you know, the village people and some kind of gay Nazi at Hitler's right. It's a god awful place, the whole state of Massachusetts. I can't stand. I've been there a lot too, and it's not a nice place. And you know, it's unfortunately it's been. Oh, by the way, it wasn't it Keith? I think Dave came up with the. He had done some research on gun confiscation in Massachusetts. It's been over 78 people killed by the Gestapo of the state of Massachusetts in the gun confiscation, and in the Shane Bennett case here, where they came in at 3 in the morning, fully armed, brandishing loaded automatic guns, faces covered with ski masks. They looked more like you know, just thieves, which is what they ended up being. You know, it's gotten to the point where, you know, how much are the people going to take?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, you have to take back you have white people up in your county to take back your county, and then get prepared for the hard times. And I'll turn it back to Dave on that note. Just use the preparedness.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
The thing we've got to remember is this is where having a community response. In California, there was a neighborhood I went to, went there to help out because everyone there wanted to learn how to build their F-15s as a big fuck you to the California government, and I told them how to manufacture their own 30-round magazines as a big fuck you. So they banned the magazine spraying. So you know what we did? Went down to the piano store, bought music wire, which is what they use anyways, and made our own springs. And guess what? They came out really great. And this whole community had come together and basically said, hey, screw you guys, we're going to do what we know is right. We're going to defend our community from all the gangbangers and stuff like that you guys brought in here, because the state government had brought in all these illegal aliens who, and one of them had an arrest warrant out for murder down in Mexico, and there was an unsolved murder hitting the same MO within weeks of him moving there. And the cops refused to. They said, we don't want to discriminate against him. Okay? So this community came together, a whole bunch of great folks, and they had such a profound effect that they told us that you don't see this happen. The whole community came together, told the sheriff, you come to our community, we're going to make an example out of you. You better get pavement now, okay? And they set up their own neighborhood watch and everything. All those little gangbangers and stuff. They got the hell out of there real soon when they started seeing that these people were not going to let their property be stolen. They were not going to sit down and let women get raped and beat up and stuff. They were not going to let their animals be molested. They were not going to let their dogs get killed. And you see, when you have a community response like that, is a big screw you. We're going to do what we know is right, period. You have a problem with us, you're going to have to kill us all. Because you can't, I don't care what government agency it is, they cannot get away with killing 500 to 1,000 people in a community that is
that's great. That's awesome that you have that kind of community response. That's what we need more of. That's more of the Western spirit. You find more of that out west and down south. I gotta say, up here in the Northeast, it's a tough nut to crack. We got a lot of gutless. We got a lot of gutless cowards pretending they're men. We got a lot of women who are standing up and stepping up to the plate. And I'm really, I don't want to say proud, pride's the fifth. I'm really happy about all the women who are stepping up to the plate in the freedom place. I mean, really stepping up, going to the court to observe, protesting, posting stuff that they would never have posted before. I mean, it's really impressive what's going on. But I mean, I called one of our veterans places up here trying to get support for a benefit that we're having this Saturday in Shortsville. And by the way, kudos to the Shortsville American Legion who had enough guts to host the benefit that we're having for the Bennett family because of the police breaking in their houses, stealing all their money and all their guns.
Eric,
no criminal act was committed. And listen to this. I called and spoke to one of the guys, and I said, never forget your oath under God to protect the people from it.
90 seconds.
Oh no, I can't talk about that. I gotta go. Bye. You know.
Right. Hey, just a pause here for a second, Eric. We got about 2 minutes left in the program here, and I want you guys, if there's anything that you feel like you need to get out, just to take a minute or two to the Shane Bennett thing. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that before you definitely hang up.
60 seconds.
I'll just mention it real quick again. This Saturday, March 5th, for anybody who's upstate New York, there's going to be a benefit for Shane Bennett, and actually more for his kids. It's really a benefit for the two boys and the wife. The cops stole $10,000 from them, only claimed $4,000 into the evidence log. The judge actually apparently told the district attorney 3 out of 5 cases that are coming in here have evidence of theft by police, stealing property that they seized, only reporting half of it, putting the rest in their pocket. No joke. 3 out of 5 times. And that's, the court is noticing that. That's not me making an accusation. That's like what I'm hearing from inside the court.
10 seconds.
So anyway, this Saturday in Shortsville, New York, American Legion, they're going to host a benefit to the family. We're charging $10 a ticket to try to get the money back into the Bennetts. Eventually, down the road, they'll get their property back, most likely. But right now, they're struggling. So we're trying to help them out. Be a nice day of music and food. If anybody can make it great. Anybody else wants to just call and support, or address the players who are persecuting the Bennett family. Their numbers are up on the internet at courtroomobservers.com. And I appreciate everybody listening to this show. Tune in again. We'll be out again, I think, maybe a week, 2 weeks from tonight.
Right,
It works for Daniel. We'll try to do this show, call it Saturday Night Special with Eric and Dave, Daniel Leach hosting. And we appreciate you having us on, Daniel. So we'll see you all again in about 2 weeks.
Yeah, Dave's still there. Is there anything you want to say before we take off here, Dave?
Yeah, well, if Eric told me to make sure to let the listeners know if there's any specific preparedness or survival or tactical topics they want to talk about, they can bring those up to you via email or however you have listeners send in their comments, and we can cover those.
Awesome, definitely.
So would that be survival retreats, firearms, whatever?
Excellent. I will definitely put the word out. Question and answers forum. We can definitely do some things like that. But I want to say I appreciate you guys once again joining us here on Studio1776.org organization. And we are broadcasting from Blog Talk Radio. And we're also simulcasting on our YouTube page, live streaming. So once this program is ending, that will be found on YouTube and also on our Blog Talk Radio. I will be posting it on Studio1776.org. That's actually up already as we're talking. So if you guys want to, let people know about the program that you're listening to tonight, definitely appreciate passing out what's going on here and what we're trying to accomplish with truth, freedom, and liberty and justice for all. This is basically what we're standing up here for. For those who can't stand up for themselves, we're doing that, or at least we're trying to. And once again, guys, I appreciate you being here with me. And this is a good night, and God bless to everybody. And this is the end of the program. And here's some music for you.
using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.